Welcome to tonight's live stream. I am going to get started in a minute. I just need a minute to promote tonight's show. Okay, I have finished promoting the stream to all of the viewers out here in cyberspace. And before I get started with tonight's show, I want to do a little perfunctory as related to several SJS Direct products. Now, my new book that I have out right now, Stop Simping in Cyberspace, is now available in paperback and Kindle format. And just yesterday, I got it available on Google Play. So if you want to pick up a copy of Stop Simping in Cyberspace and you don't really like Amazon.com or picking up books from Kindle, you can pick up a copy of Stop Simping in Cyberspace on Google Play. So you'll be able to get your own copy on Google Play, and you'll be able to pick up a copy over there, because some of my viewers, they tell me they really don't like going over to Amazon to buy books, but I have books on other platforms, so you can pick those books up over there. So you can pick up a copy of Stop Simping in Cyberspace on Google Play and get your copy over there. And it's also available on other online booksellers as well, so you can get it at other online booksellers too. And you can get this book, and this is the latest book in the Simp series. This one deals with the cyber simp, so you can get your copy of Stop Simping in Cyberspace on Google Play right now. And you can also pick up a copy of Stop Simping in Cyberspace on you can pick up a copy on paperback and Kindle. So those are your two options. I'm getting ready to get it ready for Smashwords and the iBookstore, but I have to do some formatting in order to get that book available to you. But you can currently now get Stop Simping in Cyberspace in paperback right now. You can get it on Kindle. And right now, I really need about 3 or 4 more sales to break 20 sales for the month of October. And I'm asking everybody to come out here and pick up a copy of Stop Simping in Cyberspace to help me meet that goal. So I'm asking everybody to go out here and pick up a copy of Stop Simping in Cyberspace and help me meet the goal of 20 sales for the month of October. I mean, I want to thank everybody who picked up Stop Simping in Cyberspace on pre-order on Kindle, because that helped a long way towards, try to bring this light down so you guys can see the book, and that really helped out with this book's sales. So I really want to thank everybody for picking up the book, and I'm going to get back into the next book I'm going to promote before I go on and talk about tonight's topic, which is going to be coming up in a minute. Now, the next book I want to talk about is Eve's Deemed Cancel Vacation, and this book has to deal with cancel culture. And this book is available on Amazon right now in paperback, but you can pre-order the Kindle. And I'm trying to get the sales up on this book. This is a great book that makes a commentary on cancel culture. So I'm asking everybody to pick up a copy of this book as well. And before I start, I want to ask everybody to donate to the Cash App, because it helps me stay on the air, or to drop something on the Super Chat, because this stream is going to be a tough one to monetize, because your YouTube doesn't like it when you criticize certain politicians. And tonight's, before I go in, one more progress report. Now, the John Haynes at Death's Door comic is just on its way to finishing the second act. Antonio Balderi is almost to the end of the second act. So we're getting towards the home stretch as related to completing the art. So this book, I'm hoping to have it available soon on Kickstarter. And again, I want to thank everybody for donating to things like the Patreon, the PayPal, the Cash App, because that's how I can get a great positive content like John Haynes at Death's Door to all of you viewers. Now, with all of that perfunctory finished, I'm going to get into tonight's topic. And tonight's topic is all about your joker, Joe Biden, going out here and screwing over American voters like Brett the Hitman Hart was screwed over by your Vince McMahon, because this latest proposal by your Biden administration is nothing more than a middle finger thrown up at all of those American voters out there who thought that they were going to get change, and all they got was screwed out of their tax dollars. Now, according to reports, your Biden administration is mulling to pay immigrants who were a part of migrant families who were separated by Trump-era policies $450,000 apiece. Now, this, as I see it, is a major insult to every American out here, and it's a major insult because Americans voted for your Joe Biden because they wanted to get change to move their lives forward. But instead of putting Americans first, what your joker, Joe Biden, has done has played a cruel joke on the American people by putting the American people dead last. Because to go out here and make a proposal where you're going to give six figures to illegal immigrants is an insult to every American who wound up losing their jobs as a result of this pandemic and were laid off of work, and we're not able to make ends meet for close to a year, and many of them are not even close to getting back on their feet after that pitiful $3,000 that they were given as a stimulus. And we had people complaining about, that they didn't want to give Americans their unemployment extension. I mean, with extended unemployment, you want to cut the American people's extended unemployment off, but then you're going to propose to give six figures to a group of people who are not even citizens of this United States. that is one big middle finger up at the American voter, and it's an expression of what I believe to be contempt. Now, the reason why I believe that this is an expression of contempt is because I believe many on the left are still angry at the American people for voting for Donald Trump in 2016. And passively, they want to get even with the American people by creating these kinds of policies that aggressively take money out of the American taxpayer's pocket and give it to those who are not a part of America. It's a major, again, insult to all of those American people who wound up voting for your joker, Joe Biden, who wanted to push the narrative that he was going to unite the country and build back better. But what he's done is tear down the trust of the American people by making a proposal like this that practically disrespects every American citizen and slaps them in the face. And because it is a major slap in the face to all of those American people out here who, again, over the course of the last year, have been told to leave their jobs due to this pandemic, and then were given, again, a paltry $3,000 in stimulus money and some $300 a month of extended unemployment. I mean, you're going to give six figures to a group of illegal immigrants who are not citizens and make them millionaires in some cases, because if two or three people get $450,000 apiece, you're making millionaires out of people who are not citizens. But American citizens are told, oh, you don't need your extended unemployment benefits, and you have to deal with mandates in order to get your job back. Again, this is just a complete amount of disrespect to American citizens who are having their rights trampled on and being placed like second-class citizens in their own country. Your joker, Joe Biden, is taking American citizens and making them second-class citizens in their own country while springboarding people who are not citizens into a middle-class lifestyle and possibly an upper middle-class lifestyle, and helping them build wealth, which they are definitely going to go out here and either take to their country or they're going to take to Black communities. And that's the point I'm going to get into later on, because this impacts Black Americans directly, because your Black Americans were the ones who voted in large numbers for your joker, Joe Biden, and they should be the ones who are the most outraged as related to this whole proposal. Because, again, in no country in the world do people who trespass in a country get rewarded for trespassing. If you went to other countries like Iraq or Iran or North Korea or even Mexico or Canada itself, and you're a non-citizen and you come into that country and you are not there with a passport, you are a person who just comes there, what would happen to you is they would arrest you for trespassing, and you would not be sitting there talking about, oh, I'm going to get compensation for trespassing. But here in Joker Joe Biden's backwards mind, he believes in rewarding people for violating our whole laws as related to sovereignty and violating the law as related to coming into the country. I mean, only the left believes that this whole proposal is a logical one, because when you look at this whole proposal, it's just absolutely insane to express this kind of contempt for the laws of our country and to express this kind of contempt for the American people. I mean, you're basically saying that a citizen is not valued, a citizen is not respected, and a citizen who has suffered great losses as related to a pandemic is not considered anybody that needs to be treated with respect. No, what you're saying is a person who entered the country illegally deserves to be treated better and deserves to be given preferential treatment. And again, that is just an insult to every American citizen, regardless of race, because your government is not going out here and giving the American people the respect that they deserve as citizens. And it's basically saying that they don't have any rights that they need to regard. And again, when you think about that, that's not what we, the people, voted your Joe Biden to do. No, your Joe Biden was voted into office to represent the interests of the American people. And instead of representing the interest of the American people, it seems like he's pushing an agenda where he's seemingly trying to get revenge on the American people for voting for Donald Trump. Because that's what it looks like to me when he's doing with this kind of Arkham certified policy. Because when I look at your leftists, they seem to have a major case of what I call the Trump obsession. And even when they get into power, all they think about is trying to rectify everything as related to Donald Trump instead of doing the job that the American people voted them to do. And again, this whole proposal, again, is another case of that Trump obsession that I talked about in my classic video, America's Trump Obsession, and them trying to go out here and right what they call to be a wrong. And you can look at this article that talks about this, and that's what they're doing with this kind of proposal. Again, it's got this tunnel vision as related to Trump, and that tunnel vision and this anger, I believe many on the left have for Donald Trump, has them angry at the American people who they believe had the audacity to go out here and vote for Donald Trump. And they want to go out here and get even with those American people for voting for Donald Trump. But that's the whole scary, sad part of it is they don't, in their attempts to try to hurt the American people, they don't see how they're alienating people from their cause. Because again, the American people voted for your Joe Biden and the left because they said they could do certain things, but it seems like all they have done over the past year is a number on the American people, and that number is part of what I call a screw job that is meant to try to destroy the foundations of everything as related to American people and them being able to maintain their livelihoods. I mean, when I look at this behavior, it just is disturbing to watch, because here you have a sitting president who puts the American people last, and this latest proposal just shows that there's no respect for an American citizen. And this is, again, the third or fourth disrespect to the American people. I believe the first disrespect to the American people was going out here and talking about helping out the Afghans. And again, after destroying their country, you then go out here and want to give them special treatment. The second one was the jab mandate, which destroyed most American people's ability to make a living. And this third proposal is the most extreme form of contempt expressed at the American people. And it's, again, an insult to every working class American citizen who has suffered so much over the past year. Instead of helping Americans to build back better, all your Biden administration seems to be doing is tearing America down with these crazy and extreme policies, and this whole catching themselves up in all of this idealism without ever thinking about the real people who going out here and they're supposed to represent. and the real people who they said that they were going to help. Because how does making millionaires out of people who trespass in a country help the American people? That's a critical question I would like to ask the Biden administration and its seemingly dysfunctional representatives. How is making millionaires out of people who are not even citizens in this country help the American people? That's a question that really people really need to think about, because it's just, again, it's completely insane. Now, your Biden administration wants to propose, oh, these families were separated, these families suffered, but the whole thing is you committed a crime to come into the country, and if you commit a crime, you don't reward a criminal, because to reward a criminal is completely insane. Because when you reward a criminal, what you're going to do is encourage more people to go out here and commit more crimes. But that seems to be the left's whole policy, because when we look at their policies as related to shoplifting and bail reform, they sit there and go, oh, it's okay to steal. But the whole thing is this hurts businesses all across the country. And all it does is encourage people to commit more crimes and not go out here and try to do things like try to find a job at many of these companies, which are saying that they need workers. And again, these are the kind of backwards and I believe to be retarded policies that are proposed by many on the left, who believe that these ideals that they are promoting are good for the American people. But how is it good to reward people for participating in criminal behavior? That's a critical question that most Americans need to ask your Biden administration. How is it a good thing to reward a person for committing crimes? And how is it good to help people who have gone into trespassed into the country illegally by helping them build wealth? That's something many Americans are really, when they hear it, they get upset about it, because again, $450,000 for illegal immigrants, and American families cannot even get to pay their bills because their extended unemployment was cut off, and many are facing eviction from eviction moratoriums. That's one big middle finger thrown up at the American people by the president, who promised to bring the country together and build back better. How does that build back better? Again, another critical question I would like to ask your joker, Joe Biden, because only a psychopath would believe that you can build back better by disregarding and disrespecting your American citizens. So everybody hit up the Cash App. It would be greatly appreciated if everybody were to drop a donation to the Cash App, because this is one of those streams that's going to not get monetized by YouTube, because YouTube supports the left. So I need every dollar as related to keeping this type of stream going on. And again, some of my viewers wanted me to talk about this, so I'm going in depth on it. So I'm asking everybody to hit up the Cash App so I can continue making these kind of shows. So I'm looking at this whole situation, and again, this is disturbing when you think about it, because this shows that your government isn't serving the American people. And I'm not a Trump supporter. I didn't like Donald Trump, and I didn't really support him. But this proposal just shows you how Arkham certified the other side is. And what's really disturbing is the other side believes that it's perfectly fine to just disrespect American citizens and reward people for going out here and breaking our laws and going out here. And again, you're going to make people who break the law millionaires, but American citizens, you're going to give them a little bit of change with a stimulus. And then after you give the American people the stimulus, you want to raise taxes on the American people. And then you want to go out here and have the IRS look into their bank accounts. That, again, is an expression of contempt for the American people, who are the ones who have to pay for this type of settlement that they're proposing. And why should you have to pay for a settlement for people who are not citizens? That's another critical question that people need to ask as related to this kind of proposal. Now, the main group that should really be upset about this, because all Americans should be upset, but your Black Americans should be even more upset about this because your Black voters went out here in large numbers and voted for your joker, Joe Biden. And they were manipulated into doing this because they were told that the orange man was so bad. But how is compared to the orange man, this joker that you're dealing with is far even worse, because the joke that he's playing on you expresses all the contempt he has for you, because he's sitting there again after getting your votes in 2020, and he tells you that he is not going to do anything for you. That again is the first middle finger thrown up at you, Black voter. Here you have a president who you voted for in large numbers, a president that you gave whole cities and towns and gave him states as related to electoral votes. And practically, if it wasn't for you, he wouldn't have those states, because in 2016, when Black people stayed home, guess what happened? Those white women went out here in force and voted for your Donald Trump and practically gave your Donald Trump the presidency. And it showed what happens when your Black people stayed home. And instead of appreciating Black voters for coming and giving him the presidency, your joker, Joe Biden, expressed contempt just a few weeks after winning the election by saying he's doing nothing for Black Americans. And again, that is one form of expression of contempt towards you, the Black voter. Now, the second form of contempt expressed at Black voters after telling them that they were going to do nothing was going out here and signing that anti-Asian hate law, which was going to be used to, one, give Asians tangibles in terms of money and resources, and then is going to be used to further prosecute Black Americans for alleged hate crimes. And in addition to going out here and making it harder for Black people to go out here and protect themselves with this anti-Asian hate law, we then have your joker, Joe Biden, then passing a mandate that goes out here and prevents many Black Americans from going out here to work. So your joker, Joe Biden, continues to express his contempt for Black Americans, and many Black Americans are learning that their vote is not valued by these leftists who have expressed nothing but contempt for all of Black America. Now, what's really disturbing here is that your joker, Joe Biden, can find almost six figures, $450,000 for people who are not even citizens. But when Black Americans talk about reparations for slavery and current and ongoing discrimination to recompense foundational Black Americans, you cannot find any money. How is it that you can go out here and find almost six figures to make many people who are not even citizens millionaires, but when foundational Black Americans who came out here and voted for you come out and demand tangibles, you say, one, you can't do anything for us, and then two, you say you cannot find any money. I find it interesting that your joker, Joe Biden, can go out here and find six figures for illegal immigrants, but he can't find six figures for people whose families have been discriminated against for generations. I mean, when we look at the current past discrimination, the legacy of slavery, and the current and ongoing discrimination that foundational Black Americans have suffered in this country, that is a $450,000 a person is just a drop in the bucket. And if you can find that money for somebody who is not a citizen, then you definitely can find that money for an American citizen who has all of their rights and is continuing to have all of their rights violated by a country that continues to promote white supremacy and continues to promote anti-Black racism. That is something that continues to be pushed in this country. And your Joker Joe Biden's anti-Black policies have hurt Black Americans all across this country. And this whole thing of saying, oh, I'm going to go out here and try to make an offer of $450,000 to immigrants, that is, again, a major insult to every Black voter, a Black voter who was betrayed by your Joker Joe Biden, who went out here and expressed disrespect for the Black voter from day one with that ad talking about get your booty to the poll, and then this year talking about bringing strippers out as related again to another campaign, I believe, that took place in Virginia. Continuing and ongoing expressions of contempt towards the Black voter. And sadly, we have so many of these bots out here who think, oh, if we continue to support this party, they will do things for us. But when I look at this party, the contract between Black America and them needs to be null and void. Thank you, Yak Diesel, for the super chat. He says Black folks need to maintain a long memory. The 2022 midterms around the corner. And yes, Black Americans need to maintain a long memory, and we need to realize that this party does not respect us, does not appreciate us, and practically takes us for granted. And this is why I'm all behind a campaign to tell Black Americans to stay their ass home, because there's nothing in it for you. There are no tangibles on the table, and they are not treating us like business clients. And when you go out here and you're voting is a business transaction. And when you go out here to vote, you should be getting something tangible in exchange for your vote. Because what is the value of a vote when someone who is not a citizen can go and get tangible money from the government? What value is an American citizen's vote when you have illegal immigrants can go out here and become millionaires, and they can go out here and get rich? And meanwhile, you, Black American citizen, you were told you can get nothing for your vote, and that is why you need to stay your ass home, because you're sitting there giving votes to people who don't want to give you anything. And the whole thing is they take your vote for granted and think that they are entitled to your vote, but they are not entitled to your vote. No, they have to earn that vote. And more importantly, most Black Americans need to understand you need to pick the person you are voting for, and so that you can ensure that you get tangibles. That's one of the big mistakes that many Black Americans make, is they go out here and they vote for candidates without understanding that you need to pick the candidate so that you can have your agenda represented. And once you get your agenda represented, what happens is you are guaranteed to get tangibles, because if this person does not deliver the tangibles, then you fire that person. Because just like you're working for a job, if the person does not perform, what you do is you fire that individual. If that person does not go out here and do what you told them to do and perform in a satisfactory manner, then that person is terminated. And that is something most Black Americans and most Americans need to understand about your politics. The politician works for you. You don't work for them. And the first three words of the Constitution are we, the people, and we, the people, especially we Black Americans, need to go out here and hold these politicians accountable because many of them have an extreme case of hubris and many of them are disconnected as related to the process. And because they're disconnected from the process, they believe that they are entitled to treat Americans any sort of way. And these leftists, they are the most entitled and spoiled I have seen in 2 generations. This is the worst group of politicians I have seen ever since I read about the Johnson administration. And that Johnson administration historically was one of the worst presidencies known to man. And that was a presidency that was disconnected and detached from people because it was so caught up in its ideals about so-called democracy and its obsession with Vietnam that they forgot all about the American people and the needs of the American people. And when I look at the Biden presidency, it is also just as disconnected as your Johnson administration was in being caught up in its ideals. And the ideal that they're caught up in is the whole I am not Donald Trump. But the irony is, by all of their actions, they show us how much worse they are than your Donald Trump. I mean, this guy, he's so caught up in trying to not be Donald Trump that he actually is becoming more and more like what he said Donald Trump was. And again, when you're caught up in your ideals and you are detached, you don't see the real people around you and you don't see the real situations of the average everyday person because you're so caught up in your feelings about things that you don't think critically about your actions. And that is one of the big problems with your joker, Joe Biden, as related to this $450,000. It's all about the left's feelings about them and this whole policy. And they're not thinking critically about how optically bad this policy looks to the average everyday American who, again, lost their job and is lost their extended unemployment. And many Americans are on the brink of losing their homes as related to eviction moratoriums. They're not thinking about how bad optically this looks when you take the average everyday American and put them last and go out here and make millionaires out of non-citizens. They're not looking at the optics of how bad this looks, because when I look at this whole policy optically, it's really a terrible look. And when you compound it with a policy of proposing, oh, the IRS is going to look into people's bank accounts, this optically doesn't look like you're out to serve the American people. It looks like you want to swerve the American people and you want to express hatred for the American people because on some level, you're still obsessed with Donald Trump and you are angry about the American people having the audacity to go out here and make a vote for a candidate that wasn't one of theirs. And again, I have to say, who are these people to tell the American people who they should vote for? I mean, again, according to our Constitution, American people, again, the first three words are we the people, and the American people are supposed to have a choice of who they want to choose. And if people decide to choose a person like a Donald Trump, then you're supposed to accept that choice, whether it's one that you agree with or not. Because according to our Constitution, it's supposed to be about the rights of an American citizen to make choices regarding who they want to vote for. And if your candidate cannot go out here and bring things to the table as related to an agenda, You cannot go out here and again have the audacity to take their votes and their opinions for granted, because the reason why your people went out here and voted for Donald Trump was because many Americans felt like your Barack Obama was disconnected and was not listening to the American people. This is why many white males stopped supporting the left. This is why many black people stayed home. And instead of sitting and listening to the American people, what the left continues to do is express contempt for all of America, especially Black America, and it continues to express ongoing contempt for the American people that it serves. And that's why they don't understand what's going on here. I mean, they're sitting there, you're expressing contempt for people who, again, had a right to make a choice. And when I look at, again, this proposal, it just shows, again, just detachment from reality, detachment from the average everyday American, detachment from real people who are really struggling, and a complete disconnection from reality. Because only in a place like an Arkham Asylum in the Batman comics would something like this be considered logical. But here in the Biden presidency, we have proposals, again, to go out here and give people $450,000 while most Americans can barely cover their rent. And again, that's just completely insane when you think about it. And it just shows, again, what happens when you become obsessed with one man and you get tunnel vision as related to him, because all you do is make irrational decisions based on feelings and don't think critically about how this looks optically and how disrespectful it is to the average everyday American citizen. I mean, it is, again, completely disrespectful to every working class man and woman out there for your tax dollars to be given to people who are not citizens, who broke the law and did not respect the sovereignty of your country. Because if you went into their country, again, and you did not have a passport, you would be arrested for trespassing. And that would be the case if you went into Mexico or Canada without a passport or ID. And there would be no amnesty and there would be no ticket, not to the middle class, but to becoming a millionaire. Because if you have a family and you have a man, woman, and child, and they get $450,000 each, guess how much money that is? You're making people who are going to have $2 to $3 million. And again, that's a middle finger thrown up at all of these working class people. Again, these are the people who are voters. And when I look at this left party, they show contempt for the American voter. They just show so much contempt for the American voter with their policies, with their actions. And this contempt that is shown to you, again, is a disrespect to you and a disrespect to the country. And again, a disrespect to you because it's saying to you that you are not a priority. You are not somebody they care about. All they are is, again, caught up in their feelings and their ideals. And when you are caught up in your feelings about your ideals, you wind up alienating real people. And this is one of the reasons why the Biden approval rating has dropped like a rock, because he's so caught up in trying to make his ideas the ideas. And when you try to make your ideas the ideas without ever thinking of listening to other people, then nobody's going to want to support your ideas. That's something that your Biden presidency does not, and administration don't understand. You need the support of people in order to get your agenda across, but you cannot get your agenda across if you go out here alienating people and then talking down to them. This was the same mistake that your Barack Obama made back in his 8 years in office. He came at people in a very arrogant way, and he came and approached people from a position of, I know better than you, acting in a very condescending manner, acting extremely arrogant, thinking that he's so much smarter than everybody else, but all the while, because he refused to sit down and listen to people, this wound up alienating people. Because one of the things I understood from all my years of working on publications is you have to listen to people. As a business owner, I understand the first part of business is not talking at people, it is listening to people. Because when you listen to people, then you can meet their needs. But we're not seeing this from the Biden administration, which is all about its ego and all about feelings. And that's not how you run a business like the US government. No, a business that's founded on the three words, we the people, should all be about service. And I'm not seeing much as related to service and serving the American people with this Biden presidency. Because if this is your proposal, this is not the kind of proposal that a leader who is out to serve people goes out here and proposes or even allows to be talked about. When you have a leader like this, it's not a leader who is going to be effective, and not a leader who can go out here and be able to do anything constructive. Because when you have a leader who runs on feelings, you're not going to get any sort of direction, and you're not going to get any sort of measure of goals. Because when you're running on feelings, feelings change every second. And when feelings change every second, you don't have any sort of measure for goals. I mean, I look at this whole year almost that's done for the first year of the Biden presidency, and it's a complete disaster because the whole platform of that Biden presidency was all about feelings and all about not being Donald Trump. Well, the whole thing is, I am not Donald Trump is not an argument. I am not Donald Trump is feelings. And anybody with a logical argument can say, I am not Donald Trump because I am Sean James, and Sean James is not Donald Trump. But when it comes to running a country, you need to have a vision. And it's clear that your joker, Joe Biden, doesn't have a vision because everything about his platform is feelings. And again, we're seeing feelings does not run a country. Feelings only gets you, it may get you in the door with emotional people like gullible groups, but feelings will not get things done. Feelings is why your Biden agenda is stalling, because people who are thinking critically and logically are looking at many of his policies and proposals, and they're not seeing anything that makes logical sense to the average everyday American. Like, I looked at one of his proposals talking about family leave, and this is a proposal that absolutely looks to me to be completely insane. I mean, you're proposing that a company has to go out here and give employees 6 months off, but you're not thinking about how much this is going to cost a business. Yes, the company is giving somebody 6 months off, but the company has to pay 2 paychecks at that point. So you want a company, a business owner, to sit here and pay an employee who is not there and an employee who is there. And how does that help a business maintain any sort of profitability? That's a critical question that many who propose family leave need to answer, because businesses run on money. They don't run on feelings. And if I'm paying 2 paychecks for one employee who's not there and the temp to replace them, how do I get to profitability if I'm paying for someone who is not there? And again, that's a critical question. People don't want to ask about your family leave proposal that is proposed, or many of your other proposals in your Build Back Better agenda, which make absolutely no logical sense because they are based on high apple pie in the sky dreams and not based on any sort of reality. Because once you start to ask critical questions about how you're going to pay for these kind of proposals, they make no logical sense. And again, how are you going to pay $450,000 for immigrants, but you tell Black Americans you can't do anything for them? That's a critical question that needs to be asked, because you sit there and say you have $450,000 for immigrants, and you sit there and say you're going to have money for them who are not citizens, but no money for Black Americans. Now, another crazy proposal from your Joe Biden that makes absolutely no sense is him talking about, oh, he's going to tax the rich. Now, anybody who has studied American history know that this proposal almost destroyed America when your Lyndon Johnson proposed it back in the 60s. And the same thing with your FDR. The whole tax the rich proposal falls completely apart, because what happens in every case of tax the rich is the wealthy, what they do is they go out here and move their money overseas, and some people move their businesses overseas. So how can you tax the rich when the rich just move their money? And some people already have had their money moved. How do you plan on taxing people who can, again, go out here and create policies to protect themselves? That's a critical question that needs to be asked. But they're sitting there proposing they're going to be able to pay for all of their agenda by going out here and taxing the rich. But the rich already beat this game back in the 60s and the 70s by moving their companies overseas and then moving their wealth overseas. And then even some were moving themselves overseas. So you're sitting there not looking at history and seeing that you're getting ready to make the exact same mistake, because you're caught up in ideals over your feelings, and sitting there talking about you want to give 6 figures to illegal immigrants, and then you're going to probably get the money from taxing the rich. But the rich are already gone out here and will have moved their money by the time that whole policy gets implemented, and they will have already changed things up. Again, I lived through this in the 80s, and I saw how this was done, and the whole thing is it fell completely apart back then, and the leftist was left with egg on his face, because, again, they live in a world of ideals. They don't live in a world of real. They live in a rose-colored reality where they believe that these ideas that they have in their head are possible. And because there's nobody there to go out here and vet people, there's nobody there to really give people an idea of what can go wrong with these proposals. And that's what people don't understand. And Amber Lance makes a good point. If your job can get along without you for 2 months, your job might not be back. And yeah, that's one of the problems that the idealists don't understand, is that what if I go out here and I disappear for 6 months, and then they find a new guy who can work better than me? Yes, you got leave, but the whole thing is they may leave you behind. And again, this proposal is, ideals, not real. And when you look in the real world, it's competitive, and you can be replaced just like that. And it happens a lot. Now, Neil Storm makes a good point, and he says, what business can afford not to have people work for 6 months? And again, that's a critical question. I mean, some people say that they want to help out an elderly relative. Others say they want to spend time with their babies. But what I say is the problem is that our job market is unbalanced, and we need to get people back to 8-hour schedules instead of this erratic 16 to 12 hours that people are working a day. And we don't need family leave. What we need is balance in the American lifestyle, which has become completely imbalanced because people have a codependent mindset as related to work. and not an interdependent mindset where they're sitting there thinking that if I take a job, they are not, they have to be responsible for work and that's it. But I'm responsible for the other 16 hours in the day. All I do when I go to work is I'm here to make some money and take care of some business. This job is not my life. I mean, there's got to be some balance as related to things, but we're not seeing any sort of balance as related to many of these policies. They all come, again, from a very emotional perspective. And when you come from emotion, you wind up creating policies that make no logical sense and are just so completely irrational and completely ridiculous that all they are is high apple pie in the sky dreams and not real things that real people can go out here and relate to and see real results. I mean, the problem is we have too many people caught up in their ideals and not reality. And we really need somebody with a realistic mindset to sit there and propose things that are as related to reality. And you need some balance as related to perspective, and you need some balance as related to the things that are being proposed. Because, again, when I look at this Biden presidency, it has gone completely off the rails because you have people who are just, again, it seems like they're in an imaginary world where they're proposing the craziest things, like a kid who runs for class president and proposes things like no homework and pizza every day in the cafeteria, things that just are not possible for him to do. And they're trying to make the impossible possible. And that's completely insane. I mean, only in Arkham Asylum could somebody say, oh, we're going to be able to do certain things, but these things are just, they don't fit in the confines of reality. And Reginald Blaylock makes a good point. Yes, they are cutting people off unemployment and giving people who are not citizens $450,000. Again, that's the kind of stuff that really gets people's blood boiling. And it's the kind of stuff that winds up turning people and makes them very, very angry. And it could possibly lead to civil war. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that, again, it turns people away and it just upsets people. And the sad part is when you're detached from reality, you don't see all of the angry people. And that's what happened in the case of Lyndon Johnson until it got too late. I mean, your Lyndon Johnson back in the 60s with the Vietnam War, he just kept escalating things in the hopes of trying to win. He got in his feelings about winning. And we went from 50,000 troops in 1963 to 500,000 by the near end of the war. And think about it, the U.S. military was probably about 2 million soldiers, and you've got a quarter of your military force inside of a country fighting a revolution that was between the French and the Vietnamese. And because you're so caught up in your ideals about democracy, you cannot see how you're losing as related to things. And this goes back to another video I did called America's Pyrrhic Victory, where I talked about how America would win against Donald Trump and it would be a Pyrrhic victory. Yes, you would win, but you would lose in the end. And that's what's happening right now. America is losing, and it's losing because we still have people who have this Trump obsession. And sadly, these people are in positions of political power. And these people they're just, again, so caught up in their obsession that they cannot think rationally and they can't think critically. And when you become obsessed, like the characters in Batman the Animated Series, you just go over the edge because instead of you seeing things from an objective perspective, you're so caught up in your feelings that you practically have become absolutely twisted. And when you become twisted like that, your whole perception of reality becomes warped. And instead of you seeing what's actually there, you want to see what's not there. And that has you putting your fingers in your ears and hearing and not refusing to hear people. And when you refuse to hear people, they shout even louder. And when you refuse to hear people, they go from shouting to winding up getting angry, and then they wind up losing it. And again, when you're that in deep denial about reality, there's a problem with you. And that's something that people are not really understanding about these policies. Again, Juan makes a good point. Yes, this Trump derangement syndrome, I'd say, is definitely a mental disorder. And we're seeing a lot of politicians and business people who seem to have a major case of this Trump derangement syndrome. And it seems to have cracked their minds. And sadly, these people, they have been voted into office to get power. And they've gone, a lot of people don't see how a lot of these people seem to be completely insane. I mean, when I looked at an article that was placed on Yahoo News, this Yahoo News article, I want you guys to look at this. This right here is some Arkham certified logic, and this is the kind of logic we have people who are in power presenting and then trying to say that this makes sense. When you read the title of that headline, it just comes from the perspective of an absolutely insane person. Only a crazy person would sit there and believe that this is logical. But when you look at this kind of logic, it just shows that somebody is mentally ill. That's what I'm seeing here is, again, a lot of mental illness. And this mental illness is something Americans really need to acknowledge. Zcan, yes, it is an oxymoron in some cases, but it's crazy person logic. A normal, sane person would look at this logic and they would say, this person is crazy. This person makes no logical sense. This person is not connecting dots and seeing 2 and 2. In their eyes, 2 and 2 is 5. And this person, if we had a lot of normal people in charge, this person will be put into a straitjacket because they need some sort of mental health counseling. And this proposal, again, we were talking about making millionaires out of people who are not even citizens. This is just, again, it's completely coming from the place of insanity, because a sane person would look at this and they would say to themselves, how do you give a person who is a non-citizen, who violated your laws, a reward that makes them rich? That's absolutely, completely, it's Arkham Asylum level crazy. And we, the people, need to start acknowledging the insanity that is going on. And we need to call out crazy, because it's clear that many on the left, they need to be put in straitjackets, because they've absolutely cracked. They have lost their minds. They have gone completely insane. And this is not what rational, critical thinking American people voted for. Yes, there were some who were caught up in their feelings about what happened in 2020, but this is not what people voted for. They did not vote for an absolutely, again, certifiable group of people who are in their own world, detached from reality, and completely they're gone. Again, you're sitting there proposing things that make absolutely no logical sense, and you're sitting there and trying to justify things that I would say are just absolutely, completely insane. And denying reality is the sign of a crazy person, and just denying facts is even crazier, because this whole trend of fact checkers, this is also another sign of insanity, because it seems like the people who don't want to hear the truth, what they do is they try to come out here with the fact checker and try to use them to try to make their reality reality, but it doesn't make your reality reality because people, the truth does not change. And the more you deny the truth, the more crazy you become. I mean, this is something that I'm seeing that is a pattern of what I call the nice guy and the jerk. Donald Trump was the jerk. And we have the nice guy showing us why people don't like nice guys, because they can't stand reality. They can't handle reality. And because they live in a rose-colored world, when they get power in the real world, they wind up trying to make their rose-colored reality reality. And then when they can't make their rose-colored reality reality, they wind up going out here and getting frustrated and angry. And they want to get angry at the other person, but the person with the problem is them, because they refuse to acknowledge what's actually there. They refuse to acknowledge that this is the way the world is. They refuse to acknowledge what's actually there. And when you refuse to acknowledge reality, that's when you're in some serious trouble. And when you as a nation refuse to acknowledge the reality that's there, you wind up in a place like the Roman Empire wound up in. Now, your Roman Empire, as I was reading it, went through a similar pandemic as part of its decline. And as those leaders refused to acknowledge reality, they wound up in a really bad place. Now, your Roman Empire, they were detached from reality. Their government was detached from reality for a number of years. And with each passing year, they became more and more detached from reality. They refused to acknowledge what was there. And you had this whole issue with the Visigoths and the Ostrogoths. They were knocking, these barbarians were knocking at the door, but because of the infighting and the denials of reality, they couldn't see the enemy coming at them. And as a result, this is one of the things that led to the Roman Empire falling, is that they refused to acknowledge what was there. And those citizens who tried to acknowledge what was there, they were shouted down by those who were in their emotions. And these people went out of their way to silence anyone who disagreed with them. And this is what led to the whole Roman Empire collapsing and falling completely apart. And we see parallels of this going on here in America. And your Joe Biden is fueling this whole decline of America as related to things, because he's participating in the same behaviors historically that many of those in the Roman Empire did. He's just like those emperors who denied what was there, denied reality, and was just so caught up in feelings about things that they refused to acknowledge you've got a problem, you've got an issue. And this is something that is just, again, is when you have a sick person in charge, they just sit there because they're mentally ill. They just sit there and try to say, oh, that's not there. That's not there. I know that there's stuff happening, but I refuse to say that it's there. It's got to be something else. And these denials, they are signs of mental illness. And sadly, I don't know who's sicker. Either it's your Joe Biden or the people who elected him, because only sick people will sit there and just sit there and refuse to acknowledge that this guy's a lemon and that he's defective. And his whole cabinet, again, lots of symbolism, but it cannot take the lead. And yes, you've got a diverse cabinet, but when it comes down to solving problems, they don't know how to solve problems, because they come up with proposals like this based on feelings. And the feelings don't run a country. Feelings don't run a business. I mean, you can ask the guys at Marvel Comics and DC Comics and the movie studios. They're making projects these days based on feelings about so-called diversity, making these movies that are symbolically diverse, like the Eternals, which turn into box office failures, or making comics like Kamala Khan, Ms. Marvel, that barely sell 4,000 copies. You want to spend millions of dollars printing these kind of books, but then when the stuff doesn't sell, what you want to do is you want to blame, the audience, but you can't blame the audience when you make a product that the customer doesn't want. And you cannot blame the American people when you make policies that they don't want. You cannot sit there and say it's their fault that they didn't agree with your policies. You, in a country that says the first three words is "we the people," you're supposed to be thinking about serving the people. But instead of thinking about serving the people, it's about feelings. But feelings don't run a country. Feelings don't create policies that benefit the people. No, feelings are something that you needed to learn to navigate through, and something your parents should have taught you on how to deal with. Because when it comes down to feelings, yes, you can feel about things, but you cannot act on your feelings. A person who's been raised functionally understands that, yes, I may disagree with this individual, I may not like this individual, but I have to respect their opinion. And sometimes an opinion I disagree with can give me perspective on things and can make me see things in a way that I did not expect to see them. That's something that was missing from America, I say, for the last 8 to 12 years, the ability to see the other side, because many of these woke types, many of these leftists, and many of these far right types, many of these people cannot go out here and see another man's perspective. And that's because they have no objectivity, because they are all caught up in their feelings. And when you get caught up in your feelings and you cannot hear the other side, that's a very dangerous place to be. And that's what happens when you have people who are caught up in echo chambers. They don't want to hear the other side, and that's a very dangerous place to be. When you cannot hear another person talking to you or hear their viewpoints, you're in a very dangerous place, because maybe that person is trying to tell you that you're in danger and they're trying to save your life. But because you're so caught up in your feelings, you can't hear that other person, and you could possibly walk into a death trap because you refuse to hear that other person. That is something that is scary about America, because this is the same place that Rome was in, and it's the same place those people on the Titanic were on back in 1912, I believe. Those people on the Titanic, they didn't want to hear the radio because they didn't want to hear about the iceberg. And what happened was the Titanic hit the iceberg, cracked in half, and sunk, and thousands of people lost their lives, all because somebody does not want to hear another person. And that's where our country is. And that's a very dangerous direction to be in, when you can't hear other people, you can't hear another viewpoint, and you're so caught up in your feelings and so insecure about hearing another person that you're afraid to hear something that you don't want to hear. That's again a bad place to be in, because when you are like this, you are extremely insecure, because people with confidence, they have no problem hearing another person, even if that person disagrees with them. If that person disagrees with you, it's not a problem, because you understand in a discussion, people have the right to have their opinion. And sometimes when you hear a person who disagrees with you, sometimes it can open your eyes to see things from a different perspective. And sometimes that different perspective, what it can do is help you to get a better understanding of things. And when you get that better understanding of things, you can say, oh, now I see what that guy was talking about. Now I see what he was saying. And now I understand why he was trying to warn me. And that can give me an understanding of things. I mean, I have listened to different sides on different arguments, and I can listen to that other side and understand what's there before I make an before I present my own case. But when some people, what's going on, Gboot 2786 and Gabriel, glad to see you here. These are guys. Gboot 2786 is a channel that I do live streams on every Tuesday or Thursday, and you can sub to his channel to catch me on Tuesday or Thursday. Every Tuesday or Thursday. So I'm gonna leave a link to his channel so you can check him out and sub to his channel. So I want everybody to sub to Gboot 2786. But he needs more subs, and you guys need to check out that channel because the discussions there are very intelligent, and you get to see 2 to 3 black men talking intelligently, something you don't usually see on other sectors of YouTube. Sometimes Mr. Superboy comes on Gboot 2786's channel. So there's a lot of really strong, positive black men again on his channel, and we're discussing really serious topics. Something your Joe Biden does not think black men can do. I mean, your Joe Biden, again, having strippers in a video, a commercial to get out the black vote, that shows he has no respect, again, for the black voter. And I'm glad to shout you out, Gboot 2786, because I want to see you get more viewers and more subs. So I really want to see your channel grow. So that's why I'm giving you the shout out. So I look at this whole thing, again, with your Joker, Joe Biden, again, he's giving these people, again, making these people wealthy. I mean, when you think about $450,000, $450,000 can buy an American a home. $450,000 can go out here and help a person go out here and have the foundation not to just start a business, but to go out here and live very well for an extended period of time. And again, you're not just giving one person this money, you're giving multiple people in a family this money. And that's making these people millionaires and putting them over the average American. And again, that's a middle finger thrown up at you. I mean, that's an expression of extreme contempt when you think about it. I mean, again, disrespect on the highest level here. And when you compound this with saying, oh, I want to look at an American's tax records for $600, but you want to give 6 figures to somebody else, that is contempt expressed at you. You can't have $600 in your bank account with these leftists, but they can give 6 figures to somebody who is not a citizen. Again, disrespect on the highest level. And you as an American citizen really need to think critically about this. And you really need to think about how you are being treated. Because again, I look at this as, again, revenge for people in 2016 exercising their constitutional right by a group of people who believe they are entitled to your vote, and being like the beta male nice guy, angry because you weren't chosen. Because this is the same type of behavior I have seen from your nice guy whenever the girl goes out here and chooses the so-called jerk. Whenever the girl chooses the jerk, what he does is act in the same passive-aggressive way, and he wants to express his anger because he wasn't the one chosen. And when he gets chosen, what he does is he then starts to show his ass to people. And when he starts to show his ass to people, that's when people realize who the true jerk was in the room, because he's the guy out here. And because now that he's in power, he's going to go out here and try to get his revenge on all of those people for not going out here and making him their first choice. That is a classic nice guy behavior. And that's why people, when they look at the nice guy, they start to hate him. And that's what I see with your Joker, Joe Biden, the same type of nice guy paradigm. He's sitting there angry because people in his party were not chosen in 2016. And now that he's finally been chosen as number two, now he wants to show his backside to the world, and he wants to show his backside to the people who have finally chosen him. And the contempt he wants to show them is about trying to establish his power in the relationship. But his power isn't interdependence, it's codependence. And the whole thing is he's trying to gain the leverage in the codependent relationship because he believes he's on top now. But what happens with most so-called nice guys is when they show their backside to people and think that they have the upper hand, they don't understand that the other person has a hand and they can just stop playing with you. And what happens to the nice guy is that after he craps on people and disrespects people, what those people do is they start cutting this guy out of their life. And usually the woman who gets involved with him and finds out what a creep and a jerk that he is, she then wants nothing to do with him. He winds up losing all of his friends, and it's all due to his own actions because he's the guy who showed everybody what a monster he was, because everything is about his feelings and everything is about his anger about being rejected that first time. That's what nice guys go out here and do on the regular. And what's scary is we have a so-called nice guy president, and the nice guy president is showing us why women don't choose the nice guy the first time, because the nice guy is the one who tells all the lies to you, like your Joe Biden did during the campaign trail. And then once he gets into office and gets into power, he shows his ass to people. And when he shows his ass to people and craps all over them, they realize they were all in the right for never wanting to get involved with him, because he's shown them that he's not a man about things as related to character. They show him what a monster he truly is. And when he shows that monster to people, they realize they were right in the first place for not engaging this person because that person was sick. So I'm asking everybody again to donate to the Cash App. We have 64 in the room. So I'm asking everybody to donate to the Cash App. It's greatly appreciated because it helps me stay on the air. And this was a subject that my viewers asked me to go out here and do. And I wanted to do it in depth in a live rather than make a video, because I look at this whole case. And again, this whole case with the Biden presidency is historically, again, like the Johnson administration, caught up in ideals like nice guys are. And it's treating people the same way a nice guy would. And I also look at it as, again, a major insult to Black Americans, because Black Americans were promised tangibles, but we weren't even promised tangibles. The whole thing is people went voting on emotion, talking about the racist orange man, but you have this guy treating you worse than the racist orange man. And again, that's a classic nice guy trait. The nice guy will say to the woman, oh, I'll do better than the other guy. I'll treat you right. I'll treat you good. And then once he gets with the woman, he's being just nasty and obnoxious and even worse than the jerk was. At least the jerk was honest about himself. And that's what people say about Donald Trump. He was at least honest about himself. But the nice guy, he's not honest. And that's why people hate him, because he's not honest at all. He only wants people because he wants them to fit into his fantasy. And we see this happening with the Biden presidency. He wants people to fit in his fantasy of being diverse and tolerant, filled with empty symbolism. And again, this gesture shows, again, it's all about his contempt for the American people. And that contempt is shown to you when you're going to make people millionaires that are not citizens. And then you're going to sit there and tell Americans who have lost their jobs, lost their homes, haven't had their unemployment cut off, and prices going up. Oh, they just need to go out here and go out here and deal. And then you tell them that they have to choose between a jab and a mandate. You're expressing nothing but hatred for the American people, and especially your foundational Black Americans who should feel embarrassed that they took their booties to the poll, because all you got for taking your booty to the poll was screwed, and all you got was disrespected in the worst way, and continue to get disrespected in the worst way. And sadly, we have those, especially those of the civil rights generation, and some of these baby boomers and some Gen Xers who still think that they need to take their booties to the poll. But again, a vote is a part of a business transaction. And if you're not getting anything tangible in exchange for your vote, you need to be staying your butt home, because if they're not giving you anything as related to your vote, then your vote has no value. And what shows your vote having no value is somebody going out here and giving six figures to non-citizens. That shows how little respect that politician has for you. And you cannot go out here and take that type of disrespect. No, as an American, you need to take your respect. And that's why I tell Americans, if people take your job, you need to take theirs on election day. And if people disrespect you like this, it just shows, again, extreme contempt. And again, that's the type of contempt that nice guys have. They just have deep hatred for people. And that's why I don't like it when people say, "Oh, you're a nice guy," because that really shows that there's something wrong with that type of person. And again, the Biden administration is the nice guy, and the nice guy is not nice. He's needy. He's insecure. He has no confidence. And we see all of those traits being presented to us with this Biden presidency. An insecure president with no confidence, no leadership, no direction, is passively hiding in the back and is scared to take accountability, scared to take responsibility, and goes out here and walks back his own word and shows nothing but contempt for the American people. It just, again, when you look at this latest proposal, it is the ultimate form of disrespect. And if with this type of disrespect, you just can't sit there and take that type of disrespect. No, you have to stand up for yourself as an American citizen, and you have to say that the rights that you have under the Constitution are something you're going to stand up for. And sadly, we need more people to start standing up for their rights, because the way you are being treated, I've seen this before with the nice guy. Whenever he gets into power, he does disrespectful stuff like this. And when he does this, he winds up destroying everybody around him. And then once they see what a monster he is, he then winds up leaving. People wind up leaving him right by himself. This is why your nice guy winds up alone, because whenever he gets some sort of position of power, he starts showing his backside to people and trying to get his subconscious revenge. And when he gets that subconscious revenge on people, he winds up hurting people for just basically making choices they wanted to make. I mean, yes, 2016 people voted for Donald Trump. That was their choice. And the whole thing was, you took people for granted. You don't see what you did wrong, but you want to say that those people were bigots and racists, and maybe some of them were. But again, it was people's choice. And if you don't understand that people make choices and they may not agree with you, then you don't really understand what America is all about. I mean, I sat through presidencies like the Bush presidency. I sat through the Reagan presidency as a kid. I mean, I even sat through the early part of the Rudy Giuliani. I was upset about Rudy Giuliani being mayor as a kid, as a young man. But then as I got older, I began to appreciate many of Rudy Giuliani's approaches. Again, I may not have agreed with him in the beginning, but then I got some perspective on things. And this is the problem with our America, is we've got a group of people who just are in their feelings, and they don't understand that the policies that you're putting into place, they don't fit reality, they don't make logical sense, and you cannot run a government on feelings. You cannot create a business on feelings. Things run on logic. Things run on commerce. And in order for commerce to run, you have to understand that some things are more important than your feelings. And sometimes you have to put your feelings aside, because if you can't put your feelings aside, you're going to wind up hurting people, and you're going to wind up hurting your entire arguments in your entire country. So this is a problem that people don't understand. Hey, VTech313, glad to see you here. I'm glad you're a huge fan for years. I'm doing tonight's stream because a lot of my viewers, they wanted me to talk about this whole thing that Biden was doing, this $450,000 for illegal immigrants. And I wanted to get and put some perspective on it in a live. It's because there's a lot more going on than a video. So I really wanted to go in depth on this. And I really wanted people to understand what's going on here as related to the psychology of America. And I also wanted people to understand that there are some on the left that have practically cracked at this point, and we really need to start thinking about dealing with these types of people, because they are turning America into an Arkham asylum. And in Arkham Asylum, that's a place where the inmates are cared for by professionals like Jeremiah Arkham and many others who try to help them. But we don't seem to have people understanding that we really need to do something, because the inmates are running the asylum, and the inmates are just completely destroying the country with their absolutely insane policies, their insane approaches, and they clearly show us how racist they are, because VTech makes a good point. I mean, how many Haitians are getting anything? Because the Haitians were quickly sent back, and it's just absolutely insane. And these wokesters, they are absolutely crazy. I mean, everything that they touch turns to crap. And I hate to agree with Donald Trump on that and many others on the right, far right, but it's just absolutely insane when you think about it. And when I look at this whole thing, it's this proposal, again, absolutely crazy. And when you think about the way black voters have been treated, this whole thing makes me say to every black voter, you really need to get in touch with new black media and understand the whole concept of no tangibles, no black vote, no black agenda, no black vote. And you need to stop taking your booty to the poll, and you need to stay your ass home. Now, I'm going to get ready to wrap up tonight's stream, and I want to thank everybody for coming out to tonight's stream. And I'm asking everybody to pick up a copy of Stop Simping in Cyberspace on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. And you can now find Stop Simping in Cyberspace on Google Play. And I'm asking everybody to pick up a copy of Easting Cancel Vacation, which is available in paperback on Amazon right now, and will be available on Kindle on November 19th. And I'm asking everybody to pick up other SJS Direct publications like ISIS Revenge of the Cyber Goddess, John Hayes Taking Care of Business, and what will be a Halloween classic, Eternal Night, this action-packed African-American vampire novel. So I'm asking everybody to pick up some of these books and The Man Crisis, because The Man Crisis will really help you understand where the dysfunction in Joe Biden's presidency is. This is a book that will give you some understanding of beta males and their dysfunctional behavior and their dysfunctional approaches to life. And that's what we see in the Biden presidency, the classic beta male nice guy paradigm of I'm going to not be the jerk, but then showing everybody how much of a jerk he actually is. So with that being said, I'm going to ask everybody to donate to the Cash App once more, or to the Super Chat if you want. It's greatly appreciated and helps me stay on the air. So I want to thank everybody for coming out to tonight's stream, and I'm hoping everybody hits the Cash App up so I can continue to make more streams. So I want to thank everybody again for coming out to tonight's stream. Have a good night, have a great weekend, and I hope to be there for next week's stream.